Today, we reveal how one fragile girl's pure faith defied the mighty Roman Empire eternally. Imagine the absolute peak of Roman power, where fearsome legions and vast wealth ruled the entire known world. Yet all that overwhelming military might and endless gold was rendered powerless by a child. This is the true story of Saint Agnes, the noble maiden who bravely walked into the flames without fear. How did her miraculous purity blind her cruel tormentors and leave a permanent, eternal stain? In the year 304, the vast Roman Empire stood as the undisputed master of the ancient world. Deep within the heart of this glorious capital lived a remarkable girl, born to supreme privilege. She was only 13 years of age, yet her breathtaking beauty captured the attention of everyone. Historical records state that every powerful patrician family desperately sought her hand. Among these arrogant suitors was the favored son of Sempronius, the mighty Prefect of Rome. This young nobleman walked confidently into her opulent villa, with chests flowing with bright gold. He offered her mountains of rare, sparkling jewels, attempting to purchase her unwavering loyalty. For any ordinary Roman citizen, such unimaginable wealth could not be ignored. If you were offered the entire world in exchange for your core beliefs, would you have the courage to calmly say no? But Agnes possessed a spirit that earthly riches could never buy, and she calmly watched the arrogant man. Without a single trace of hesitation, the fragile maiden politely but firmly refused his luxurious gifts. She boldly proclaimed that her heart and soul were already promised to a divine, immortal bridegroom in heaven. She spoke of Jesus Christ, declaring that her profound spiritual purity was a sacred vow that could never be broken. The arrogant nobleman stood frozen in total disbelief, humiliated by this 13-year-old. He could not comprehend how a fragile child could reject the glorious power and infinite wealth of the Roman state. His bruised and battered ego quickly turned to burning rage as he gathered his rejected treasures and stormed away. He ran to his powerful father, the cruel Prefect Sempronius, demanding brutal retribution. When the ruthless Prefect heard his noble son had been rejected for a forbidden Christian faith, he was furious. According to ancient texts, Sempronius viewed her bold defiance as a direct insult to the gods. He ordered his heavily armed guards to violently drag the young girl from her home to the dark court. Standing before the towering marble judgment seat, Agnes appeared small, yet entirely unafraid. The furious Prefect glared down at her, expecting the terrified child to fall weeping for his mercy. Instead, he met a pair of clear, peaceful eyes that radiated a mysterious, divine confidence. Sempronius demanded that she burn incense and offer sacrifices to pagan Roman deities. He offered her one final chance to abandon her faith, promising to forgive her if she just obeyed. But the young maiden stood her ground, her voice remaining perfectly steady as she refused to betray her holy vows. Her unwavering devotion shattered the Prefect's patience, driving him into a dark and frenzied state. If golden authority could not break her spirit, he would employ the most brutal psychologic weapon. He cruelly threatened to strip away her noble dignity, declaring a fate worse than any death. The magistrate ordered his soldiers to drag the pure maiden to a degrading brothel in the city. His malicious goal was to publicly humiliate her, stripping her of the purity she valued so much. The vicious crowd of onlookers eagerly anticipated her despair, waiting for her to break down. But even standing on the edge of total public humiliation, Agnes did not shed a single tear. She maintained her silent prayer, trusting completely that her heavenly protector would never abandon her. As the brutal guard stepped forward to forcefully remove her garments, an incredible miracle occurred. Before the wicked soldiers could even touch her fragile skin, her golden hair began to grow rapidly. The glowing strands cascaded down her shoulders, forming a radiant golden cloak that covered her body. A blinding, supernatural light erupted from her figure, illuminating the wretched dungeon. The aggressive guards immediately stumbled backward, throwing their hands over their eyes to block the intense, holy glare. Every single spectator who dared to look upon her was instantly struck with a terrifying blindness. The dark and filthy room was completely overwhelmed by a divine presence protecting the innocent child. Prefect Sempronius cowered in absolute terror, his purple robes providing no shield against the light. The very people gathered to mock and degrade her were now screaming in panic and crying out in pain. Amidst the chaotic frenzy of the terrified crowd, the young saint remained peaceful and perfectly serene. This miracle proved the mighty Roman Empire was powerless against a genuine and sacred faith. Even the darkest, most degrading corners could not tarnish the brilliant soul of this devoted maiden. The blinded men stumbled around the dark room, desperately begging their pagan gods to restore their lost vision. Even the arrogant son of the prefect, who demanded her hand, fell to the ground in absolute fear. Legend says that he was struck down by the overwhelming holy power, appearing lifeless on the cold floor. Seeing his precious son collapsed, the ruthless prefect Sempronius finally broke down, screaming in panic. He was forced to swallow his massive Roman pride and actually beg the young Christian girl to save his dying son. With infinite compassion, Agnes did not hold any anger toward the cruel men who tried to break her. She knelt down on the dirty stone floor, quietly offering a sincere prayer for the young man who tormented her. Instantly, the arrogant suitor gasped for air, miraculously revived and completely healed by her grace. Witnessing this undeniable display of divine power and profound mercy, the prefect was speechless. For a brief, fleeting moment, it seemed that the cold, violent heart of the magistrate had been truly softened. He desired to release the sacred maiden, secretly terrified of the immense heavenly power she held. However, the pagan priests and the angry mob began to riot, demanding her immediate death. They falsely accused her of using dark sorcery to manipulate the prefect and blind innocent citizens. Fearing a political uprising that would destroy his career, Sempronius surrendered to the mob. He washed his hands of the entire situation, handing the innocent girl over for final judgment. The cowardly decision mirrored the famous trial of Jesus, showing how earthly justice crumbles. Without a single ounce of mercy, the Roman deputy sentenced the young saint to a truly brutal end. He decided if her purity could not be taken in the dark, she would be completely destroyed in the bright light. He ordered that Agnes be tied to a wooden stake and consumed by fire in the center of the grand public square. This horrific method of final punishment was designed to strike maximum fear into the hearts of Christians. Once again, the heavily armed guards violently grabbed the maiden, dragging her out into the bright sunlight. As she walked toward her impending tragic doom, her glowing face remained serene, devoid of any fear. In the very center of the bustling Roman square, a massive, terrifying wooden pyre had been built. Thousands of curious citizens gathered around, creating a dense wall of eager spectators. They watched intently as the brutal soldiers tightly bound the young girl's delicate wrists to the central stake. The rough, thick ropes dug deeply into her pale skin, yet she did not utter a cry of pain or beg for mercy. The massive, muscular imperial punisher stepped forward, carrying a torch that burned with violent rage. He hesitated for a brief moment, unsettled by the perfectly calm expression on her gentle face. But following his strict imperial orders, he thrust the burning torch into the dry wood at the base of the grand pyre. The hungry flames immediately erupted, roaring violently as they climbed up the tall wooden structure. Thick, suffocating black smoke rapidly filled the air, and the intense heat pushed the front rows of the crowd further back. Everyone expected to hear the screams of the fragile girl as the deadly fire consumed her small, weak body. However, ancient records describe a second, even more astonishing miracle that left them breathless. As the roaring fire reached her bare feet, the violent flames suddenly parted, refusing to touch her pale skin. The deadly inferno miraculously curved outward, creating a safe, cool sanctuary around her. Not a single strand of her long golden hair was singed, and her pure white silk garment remained entirely spotless. Instead of burning the gentle saint, the furious fire suddenly blasted outward, pushing the intense, heavy heat. The roaring flames aggressively surged backward, striking the terrified guards who stood entirely too close. The brutal men screamed in sudden agony, dropping their torches as they scrambled away from the holy fire. It was as if nature itself bowed down in deep reverence, actively refusing to harm such a pure young soul. The massive crowd gasped in profound disbelief, witnessing the undeniable protection of the divine God. Even the hardened, disciplined Roman soldiers dropped their heavy shields, whispering nervously about the magic. If you witnessed a roaring fire refuse to burn an innocent child, would you finally question your own deep beliefs? Standing safely within the parted flames, Agnes simply smiled, softly whispering her faithful prayers to the heavens. She thanked her divine protector, standing like a victorious queen despite being bound to a wooden stake. The absolute failure of the fire drove the officials into a state of deep, uncontrollable madness. Their ultimate weapon of terror had been neutralized by the silent, unyielding faith of a 13-year-old. The pagan priest screamed louder, demanding that she be struck by the sword, a fatal strike reserved for fallen soldiers. Realizing that the flames would never claim her, the Roman deputy ordered the guardsman to draw his heavy blade. When the miraculous fire faded, the tall punisher finally drew his massive, heavy iron sword. The brutal man, who had vanquished many, now stood trembling violently before the calm gaze of a young child. Unbound from the heavy stake, Agnes gracefully walked towards the quiet center of the grand Roman square. A rough stone block sat in the courtyard, darkly stained with the vital essence of many fallen criminals. Without needing any gods to push her, the young maiden willingly knelt before the cold block of judgment. She gently laid her head on the cold stone, closing her clear eyes in a state of absolute and perfect quiet peace. Her beautiful golden hair draped like a royal veil over the dark edges of the horrible stone block. The massive Roman crowd suddenly fell into a deep, terrifying, and totally unbroken silence. Hardened soldiers lowered their heavy weapons, deeply moved by the quiet bravery of the innocent child. The guardsman raised his heavy iron blade high above his head, preparing for the absolute final, fatal strike. Heavy drops of cold sweat rolled down his rugged face, and his powerful, muscular hands shook violently. Looking at the pure neck of the fragile girl, he was totally unable to force his arms to swing down. Ancient texts claim the maiden softly encouraged the guardsman, telling him to strike without any fear. She whispered that her divine lord was waiting, eagerly welcoming the heavy iron blade to unite them. With an agonizing cry of deep despair, the Punisher finally brought the heavy sword crashing down. A single powerful blow ended her short life, severing her fragile body from her eternal soul. A pure crimson stain spread across the cold judgment block, forever staining the conscience of the mighty empire. The hostile Roman crowd instantly erupted into loud weeping and uncontrollable sorrow. They quickly realized the mighty Roman state had not achieved a victory, but a shameful defeat. Even Prefect Sempronius turned his face away in deep horror, unable to watch the tragic scene. Brave Christians emerged from the weeping crowd, gently carrying her broken body away for burial. She was laid to rest in the dark catacombs, forever hidden from the brutal, cruel Roman state. While her grieving parents prayed at the tomb, they saw a brilliant heavenly vision of their beautiful daughter. She stood in radiant robes beside a pure white lamb, a sacred symbol of her eternal innocence. Agnes gently smiled, urging her parents not to cry, because she had reached eternal heavenly glory. The inspiring story of her brave martyrdom spread rapidly throughout the entire Roman Empire. Rather than destroying the faith, her public sacrifice ignited a massive wave of religious courage. Moved by her strength, many Roman citizens forever abandoned their ancient gods and embraced the Christian faith. The mighty Roman Empire and its fearsome legions finally crumbled into forgotten ancient dust. But the sacred name of Saint Agnes survived the test of time, remembered as a symbol of holy faith. A magnificent church was built over her quiet tomb to honor her holy and tragic sacrifice. Scholars note her defiance proves the complete failure of state violence against sincere religious faith. True power comes not from heavy swords, but from an unbroken commitment to holy and pure beliefs. The greatest ancient military force was totally defeated by a pure 13-year-old girl. If forced to choose between immense wealth and your core moral beliefs, what would your ultimate final decision be? Her earthly death was not an end, but the glorious start of a holy legacy that outlasted Rome. In Latin, her beautiful name, Agnes, translates perfectly to mean a gentle and completely pure lamb. She was the pure lamb who bravely stepped into the dark den of Roman wolves and emerged fully victorious. Her pure faith acted as an unbreakable spiritual armor, defeating the flames and the heavy sword. As ancient scholars rightly declared, the sacred sacrifice of the brave martyrs is the true seed of the Church. She watered that sacred seed with her short, innocent life, ensuring her pure faith would forever survive. Roman statues have crumbled entirely into silent dust, but the pure memory of Agnes lives on. Her story proves the pure light of truth can never be fully destroyed by tyrannical, dark Roman rule. When facing an impossible challenge, remember the young child who peacefully defeated a massive regime. Today, she is honored as the patron saint of young girls, inspiring generations with her perfect faith. May the pure light of Saint Agnes forever shine in our hearts, reminding us to always stand in the truth. Her brave legacy of pure courage proves that even the smallest person can forever change the whole world. Her pure, innocent sacrifice forever shattered the illusion of mighty Roman invincibility. Was her sacrifice a tragic loss or the greatest victory in history? Share your thoughtful comments below. If this powerful story inspired you, Please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more epic legends.